My name's George HorseCapture Jr. Hays, Montana. I was born March 22nd of 1958 in Butte, Montana. Yes, I do. My great-grandma named me when I was quite young. We was up visiting from California. She lived in Havre at the time. Walking off. Horse capture. The only one that I claim, no, tribal and my white blood, I only claim Aaniiih. The rest is insignificant. My dad is George HorseCapture Sr. And my biological, her name was Sharon, and I don't know her last name because my dad raised me. My grandparents are Joe HorseCapture and his mate at the time was my dad's mom, Carmen Falcon HorseCapture. I have 7 of them. Or 8 now. Yeah, 8. That little boy we're adopting, you know. Elizabeth, William, Valerie, Sage, Iitaanɔɔn'i, Dasa, Whitebird, and Nisa. The world. Means the world. I got children, I got grandchildren, but I could have never been blessed more than being born Aaniiih. That's how much it means to me. I never went to high school. And elementary, I was in school Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco, and Oakland. It was a wonderful time. Got to be on Alcatraz during the occupation. Got to listen to Cesar Chavez. Get more rights for his people, the migrant workers. Went to Black Panther rallies. A lot of people don't know who she is, but you know that when Patricia Hearst was kidnapped by the SLA, that was in the news. Went to some of the food distributions just to watch the melee after the food ran out. Me and my buddies. There's a lot of good things. And Berkeley. Hippie girls. God damn hippie girls. It was a very interesting time. You know, it was kind of Vietnam era was, winding down. It was just a lot of things going on, and Alcatraz was one of them. The Indians in California, as they start pursuing education, they would spend a lot of time in them universities, going through the libraries, the legal libraries, law libraries. And they got educated on the fact that any federal law any federal land that's been abandoned by the government, it's supposed to revert back to the Indians. Alcatraz was abandoned for years and years. The Indians, tried getting it back, but as soon as they occupied it, all of a sudden, out of the blue, the federal government wanted to use it for other things. And it was great. I learned a lot of things. I didn't know exactly what I learned and how they would play a part in my life, you might say, but important seeds were planted. Very important seeds were planted. And that's where, in time, I came to realize we decide our destiny. We have a say in it. Okay, if I was staying with my grandfolks, because I spent a huge part of my time with them, a huge part. A lot of beans, chicken, bannock, salt side, oatmeal for breakfast, and then if I was with my dad, I don't know, just run-of-the-mill, hamburgers occasionally, a round steak, stuff like that. Nothing really fancy or high-end. And we didn't go out to eat very much because in them days it was a luxury to be able to go eat, out. California offered you a lot of opportunities to have fun. And during that time period, it was a very racial time period. Like I said, Cesar Chavez, the Black Panther. So there was red power, brown power, black power, white power, all these kind of things. And as a young person, you kind of turn into a militant as you learn more about who you are, where you come from, that. So we'd get in arguments and fights. We'd go down to Fisherman's Wharf and unload small fishing boats for a little bit of money to spend. There was just ride bikes. Oh, gee whiz, we did a lot of bike riding and stuff like that. And did a little, stealing of bicycles, a lot of little petty theft kind of crap like that. A little bit of shoplifting, you might say. But mostly fights and just roaming around, almost like, what would you call it? Discovering different places within Oakland, all kinds of little dandy places. Okay, growing up, some of the first languages I heard was Cree from my dad's mom. She talked it like next to nothing unless you asked her. And my second grandpa, he was a Hadadsa. And the only time I heard him talk or sing Indian is when he was drunk. My dad's dad, I heard him, just Wahe and that real small stuff. And after I moved to the reservation, I left home quite early and I moved back here. And a lot of the people at that time, the only time I'd hear languages, they were drinking. I never really heard anything while people were sober, And that's unfortunate, but that's the way it was, So yes, I did, but it was usually under an intoxicated form they were talking. Okay, in California, we'd always have, as kids, we'd have little spot jobs where we could rustle them. And then I became a paper boy and I delivered the Oakland Tribune for a while. Just a wide variety of things, washing dishes, waiting tables. One time I even talked myself into being a cook. Man, was I sorry about that. That's pretty a hectic work. Worked on ranches, just a gamut. One might even say a plethora of things. Yes, growing up in California, like I said earlier, that spent a lot of time with my grandfolks, and so I was born a Catholic. Got baptized and all that kind of stuff. We used to go to church. In those days, church was all spoken in Latin. Women had to wear this doily thing on top of their head. Went to my first communion. So I had a lot of that. I didn't, not because of Indian reasons. I didn't want to go to church. I just didn't want to go to church because while I was sitting in church, all my buddies were out raising hell, and there I am sitting there all for a little cracker midway through the ceremony. Nah, I'd rather raise hell with my buddies. No, not at all. Not right away, a lot of drinking. I was, still pretty young yet when I left home. Uh, so, I did my share of drinking and stuff like that. And it was not until I was maybe in my 30s is when I started getting involved. But it was mostly as a spectator at first, because there's kind of a hesitance to get in. And in those days, there was more, people were more, our own people was more afraid of them. So fear is just being preached to you like that. Oh, watch out, if you do this wrong, all hell's going to break loose. And there's just a lot of fear. So I went about it apprehensively. And I was somewhat even older when I went to my first sweat, things like that. And I didn't go to the sun dances around here very much. My family, most of us did Sundance, but we go down to Iitaanɔɔn'i, Fort Hall, or Iitaanɔɔn'i. What's that? Wind River, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where we Sundanced, just mainly because Arapaho is our closest relative, and we figured that their Sundance would be more closer to the Sundance we once had, before we have these foreign Sundances here. But yeah, just slowly but surely, and some of my dad's friends, watching them and seen a few things like I said, in California, but not very much. I seen Russell Means at the Alameda Powwow kind of setting up a Sundance, but soon as the reporters left, he stopped, and that was the end of that, and a lot of times different people would do that stuff in an urban setting, just as long as there was news cameras there. And a lot of times, as soon as the cameras left, whatever they were staging like they were going to do didn't happen in a lot of cases. Not all cases, but in a lot of cases. I think a rest home would be nice, because you got to go on the outside, and there's a bunch of blue-haired white ladies in there, and, a lot of that generation that's in rest homes, they were pretty severe bigots once, not that long ago when they were younger, so you get the dirty looks and stuff. I think a nice rest home so that people can be easier for them to get company and still be a part of the community, the reservation, Nice rest home. I know a little bit, your grandma Teresa, she's the acting director down at Life's Language Lodge, and I'm kind of learning from her and some of the kids. There's a lot more younger people that's pretty damn fluent. And but I have a hard time remembering stuff, and but I got a few words that I know, but not very many of them. When I was younger, it seemed to be more violent. Their share of stabbings and shootings and what have you. But saying that, I think today is more dangerous because of the drugs and all that kind of stuff. So I think to a certain part, it's went downhill. We had our problems, and a lot of it was, alcohol, driven in those days and stuff. But now that it's so many different things, and it's just really, really different than when I first came back to the reservation. Well, the Grinnell knots is you listen to the testimonial. Them old guys, so many of them didn't think they were selling. They thought they were leasing as you read the testimonial. And some, as you read the testimonial, they talked about, I know what you're going to do to us if we don't agree to this. They were referring to the white folks, the government folks there, because they already went through hell already, and they knew it could be not good for them, but a lot of them, they thought it was a lease kind of thing, and but I'm very proud to say that my great old horse catcher in that testimonial, he was one of the ones that got up, touched the pen, and went and sat back down, which in those days meant, F you, I'm not signing this. He said, I'll leave it to our young. Yes, traditional, but it was a short-lived career. I mean, I just couldn't keep the powwow Janes off me once I did a few fancy moves, like that. So I had to, I was causing them Crow guys to get mad at me, so I had to quit. Geez, I've been blessed with so many people. So many. My dad's dad, my Uncle Emery Gray, my first father-in-law, Dave Hawley, because he was, I think he was born in 1914, I'm not sure, but he's the one that would tell me so many stories of this, who lived here at what time. He used to brag that he was, he got to know he called them real Indians, the Buffalo Indians. Some of the Indians still wore birch cloth. He was very proud of that fact. And he'd tell me story after story of things he witnessed firsthand. And really grateful for that, because I was a generation well before me that shared this and trusted me, with a lot of stuff. My memory is starting to fail, but I'll tell you, if I have coffee, cigarettes, and a campfire, boy, I could remember stuff under those kind of circumstances. But he taught me lots and shared a bunch of stories, along with Grandma Jeanette Boyer, and like this building's named after Kills that night, Teresa Lanebowl, she'd share stories, Elmer Maine, so they all contributed to, a few goodies in that big pot of soup there that I got to feast from. Yes, other clans call my clan Frozens, but the name for ourselves is Plumes in the Hair. I see it happening already. I've had people much older than you say, well, there's only one tribe here. And there is not, it's, but because you educated yourself, hire a government. Now we're the Fort Belknap Indian community. In Fort Belknap, the water lawyers say that there's no more Gros-Ventre, there's no more Assiniboine, or Fort Belknap Indian community. And I hope at some point in time we'll realize who we are, what we have, what a blessing it is, and we take more effort into restoration and preservation on who we are, how we treat each other, all those kind of things, you know, very, very important. But I see it already leaning that way, that where some, they don't see a value in it, and, you know, they're Fort Belknap Indian community members versus Aaniiih or Nakoda. I'm going to tell you a story that means lots to me because it meant lots to somebody else. And again, I'm talking about my first father-in-law, Davy Hawley. Me and him, we spent a lot of time together. And when we go up to the canyon, Little People's Canyon, is you're going up. Right at the mouth, left-hand side, there used to be a big willow tree there. It washed down in, you know, a big flood, you know, a few years ago. But he would tell me about that tree, and he called me Junibug. Junibug, in this tree, there was a crow was buried. They'd still use the term buried, even though that usually indicates being covered up. But he was put to rest in that tree. He was a Crow Indian. His name was House. Who his companion was here, I never thought to ask, and Davy never told me. But my father-in-law was poor growing up, real pitiful. His folks split up, and, you know, the Grandma Warrior and the other two women that, you know, she lived with took him in and raised him, and he didn't have anything. But he talks about this crow. Rode a big black horse, real handsome horse. And that crow, when he would ride in his stirrups, he'd put his feet out, kind of up, so you can see the bottom of his moccasins. And most Indians, when they wear beaded sole moccasins, that's usually a burial type moccasin. But that crow wore him because he was fancy, he was moose, because he could afford that. Because, you know, beads are not going to last long, even walking on a dirt road. You know, your first walk is going to bust up some beads right there. But my father-in-law seen that when he was a kid, and he liked that. And that encouraged him to do something with his life. And he joined the service. He worked for CCC. He eventually became a farmer, a rancher, where he wasn't hurting, and he made sure his kids weren't hurting for food, clothes, nothing like that, you know. So that, to me, that's a good story, because he would repeat it over and over. And usually when an older person tells you something, and he wasn't senile by no means, but when they tell you a story over and over, that's usually an indication that this story means lots to them. And they want somebody to remember, you know. And that, to me, that's an important story, just because it was so important to somebody else, somebody that I love. And if it's important to them, it's important to me because of that love factor involved there. Get your act together as soon as possible. Times are getting hard. It's kind of scary. All this every man and woman for themselves, that's a bunch of crap. Figure out, are you Aaniiih, are you Nakoda, whatever you are, be a good one. Be a good one. and make sure that we don't fall by the wayside. There is now a growing get out of Dodge toward the Catholic Church. There's still a lot of ones that are not that way. You know, Stockholm Syndrome's a hard thing to shake. Most people don't know what Stockholm Syndrome is, but so many of our people have it, you know, and they don't know what it is. They can't identify it in themselves. But it's growing more and more. Don't be here. But at the same time, to a certain degree, I think spirituality, any kind, is not as common as it used to be, or a different form of spirituality. There's just so many factors involved in that, you know. But yeah, them sons of bitches can get out of Dodge, you know, as far as I'm concerned.